briefing for Wednesday, the 18th of October. Hope the first half of the week's been good to you all, and you're rearing to go for the wind down to the weekend, or whatever it might be. Phantom Foundation has suffered what is most likely to be a reasonably small hack. So Phantom Foundation is a non-for-profit organisation which supports the Phantom blockchain network. Apparently there has been a breach of an account. According to Phantom Foundation, it is an account that is used by one of their employees, although the wallets that have been drained look like they appear to be Phantom Foundation level wallets, but actually aren't. They're just ones that are named that way, but are used by a single user. The vulnerability that was being exploited was a vulnerability in Chrome WebP format. It's vulnerability CVE 2023-4863 and has a CVSS score of oh, bless me. Oh, her CVSS score. I'm so unprofessional. CVSS score of 8.8. It enables a remote attacker to execute an out-of-bounds memory write through a specially crafted HTML page. Initial thoughts were in the cryptocurrency world was this was going to turn out to be something huge. It looks like it probably isn't huge, but it is a timely reminder of, in fact, two things. The first one being it's really important to keep your systems up to date, and that includes your browser. Chrome, well, lots of browsers do this, but Chrome is pretty good at identifying and updating itself, but it does need to be restarted sometimes. So, I know, hands up in the techie world, we've probably got a dozen tabs, if not more, open, loads of windows spread across lots of different desktops, working on loads of things at once. And you either miss or choose to postpone that update now kind of button that appears in your browser. It is worth doing it because sometimes the vulnerabilities that are being fixed are ones that may be exploited by some of the sites that you're going to. So definitely, it's almost worth having a little bit of sort of basic cyber hygiene on this thing. If you're going to go and interact with, your cryptocurrency wallets via exchanges online, do a quick check to make sure your browser's up to date. If you're about to go and do research onto some dark, dim and nasty part of the internet, well, just make sure your system's up. In fact, even better, do it from a system that you can just blow away at the end of it. Just be careful with what's going out there. So yeah, and it is also a reminder that keep your authentication strong in anything that really matters, unique, strong passwords backed up with multi-factor authentication, or as we'll talk about a bit later, have a look into some of the new passkey technologies that are moving into the mainstream. So there is indications that there is a current supply chain attack targeting Telegram, AWS, and Alibaba cloud users. Articles in HackRead, which is, in my experience, a pretty good place to get information from. But the cybersecurity firm Checkmarx has discovered a new wave of supply chain attacks that are exploiting bugs in popular communications and e-commerce platforms. The attackers are the attackers are injecting malicious code into open source projects, and they're then then compromising those systems. And the way that they are looking to get malicious code into open source projects is through starjacking and typo squatting. So typo squatting is it has moved on a long way from swap an L for a one and that sort of stuff. They now the packages now look very very close to the originals. So and they might have a version 2 appended to the end of them. For example, there's a package, a Telethon 2, which is a typo squatted version of the popular Telethon package. So that's a good example of one to watch out for. So and star jacking leverages the lack of validation when people are giving packages ratings effectively. So in a lot of cases, the people rating package. This is actually true of much more than just software packages. This is true of all sorts of stuff. Recommendations on Google, stars in Amazon, the whole thing. There's often a lack of validation. Not always. Some companies matter, but lack of validation between the review and the stars that you give via the website and your actual usage of that particular product. So for purchase products, I suppose companies can at least link back to see whether you actually bought it or not. Or I wonder whether they do. For anything which is open source or downloadable, it's very, very, very hard to tell whether your review is linked to your actual use or is just out there either denigrating or exalting something for your own nefarious means. But then, if you are a software developer, I am sure, and I think it's perfectly legitimate, that when you're looking for a package to do X, Y, and Z, you read the reviews of things. Literally millions of potential packages out there in all sorts of languages. You can't be expected to personally know which packages are good, which packages are bad. You can look for things like downloads. You can look at numbers of downloads, reports on on the internet, blah 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 blah. But in the end, those things can be played by threat actors and have been played by threat actors. Now, whilst they're talking in this article about injecting code into open source software, I'm still very much a supporter of open source software. A lot of closed source commercial software uses codes that has been taken from GitHub or whatever it may be anyway. So at least if it's open source, the ability, if you're particularly concerned, the ability to look into what the code is doing is there. And you can make choices about which particular pieces of code you're building into your applications. If it's closed source and you're just buying it, well, you've just got to trust somebody else to have done that and done that job well. And if you're making money out of selling something, you need it to be reasonably secure because you don't want to destroy your reputation. That would destroy your revenue, as in your job will go. So yeah, be good, but if little things squeak through, fix them later when they actually become a problem. So I don't think that this is a particularly damning indictment of malicious code in open source software specifically. I think it is much more an indicator that these days you have to be really careful about what code you include in your applications, and you have to have some robust processes internally to check the security of what is going on there. Taking a DevSecOps approach. Whilst it has become a bit of a buzzword, but if it isn't because it isn't a team, it's a concept. But if you apply the concept properly, it actually helps to make sure that the stuff you do release is genuinely good and safe. Article on Bleeping Computer that I came across this morning is looking again at default passwords, weak passwords. This particular article is focusing on compromised passwords where the account is admin, and then what sorts of passwords are being used for these compromised admin accounts. So they did some investigation into nearly 2 million administrator credentials, and 40,000 of them had a password of admin. They've also got a list of the top 20 admin passwords: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 1, 2, 3, 4 are the top 4, and the fifth is password with a capital P. I mean, this stuff is just ridiculous. It is just a case of laziness and people not changing default passwords, most likely, or not even realizing that these weak passwords remain on devices. So, clearly, just a reminder: if you have got a device or a system or a service that has administrative access, use strong authentication for that access. As always, long, complex, unique passwords enhanced with multi-factor authentication is good. Passkeys are, they're becoming mainstream, so there's some interesting stuff out there as well. So, think about these things and audit all the devices that you're responsible for to see whether there are default backdoor type, administrator accounts. Rename the account if you can do it. And definitely don't stick with default passwords or simple to guess passwords like the ones in this article. You would think it doesn't need saying anymore, but if they've been looking at this stuff and there's so many accounts out there, and if one piece of research can find this stuff, well, so can other threat actors. So you have been warned. Talking of passkeys, Amazon is quietly introducing passkey authentication into its services. So passkey authentication, for those that don't know, it is you may already be using it. So iPhones using Face ID or Touch ID, fingerprint scanners on laptops, all these sorts of things. Ways of logging you in that don't require you the username and password that you type in. In the background, although I'm not going to claim that I know a huge amount about passkey implementations, but my understanding is it's basically using a form of certificate-based authentication. So on your device, presumably unlocked by your fingerprint, there will be a certificate which will then cryptographically match up with a certificate held at whatever it is you're trying to authenticate against. So if any, I years and years and years ago did a very comprehensive rollout of PKI authentication for basically what would be legally termed as any real people, real humans, what do they call them? I don't know. Actual people, as well as service accounts, you name it. Everything had to be PKI authenticated. 10 years ago, this was quite hard. It is no longer hard. And if using some of these other passkey type methods of unlocking the certificates and ensuring authentication is if that stuff is now built into devices and operating systems, this is a really good way forward. I do, though, still have some concerns about using biometrics to unlock stuff, if only because, as I've said, once your digital fingerprint has been compromised, there is at least a theoretical possibility it can be inserted into the path that unlocks your certificate for passkey authentication. It isn't a problem right now because I don't think many, I just don't think that the attacker world has spent enough time looking at these things, but just be aware, I think it might be coming. Anyway, that is enough for today from me. So I hope you have a great Wednesday, and I will speak to you